Hurricane Sandy was when it approached the Northeast a few years ago. So there are your blizzard warnings. Again, conditions are going to be terrible throughout the day today. That's why people are urged to stay home and just watch us outside for you.
Good idea. And of course, the lower the pressure, the worse the storm.
Absolutely.
All right, Janice, thank you very much. Meanwhile, let's talk about a blizzard of headlines today. It's all about a brand new book that actually launches next week. It's by Michael Wolff. The new book is called Fire and Fury. I'm sure you've heard plenty of salacious details about it already. What's interesting is Guru unloads on Trump White House, according to the New York Post. The Guru is Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was served papers last night by President Trump's lawyers saying you got to cease and desist because you signed a non-disclosure agreement. And now this morning, what's interesting is Axios is reporting that apparently Trump lawyers are considering suing the author of the book, Michael Wolff.
But did they let him in the White House and give him access where he was seen often and early and often with Steve Bannon, giving him many interviews? Steve Bannon did pick up the phone and call others and say, cooperate with Michael Wolff because he's writing about the first 100 days. And then I guess Michael Wolff said, let's make it the first 200 days. And then he comes out and puts out this book. Steve Bannon has not said that he has a problem with any characterization that's been released so far in this book. However, Michael Barak, who is a longtime, Tom Barak, longtime friend of the president, is quoted as calling him basically
says it's not accurate.
Yeah, says he's stupid and horrible things. Says that is not accurate. Katie Walsh says I am not quoted accurately, but Steve Bannon is not.
Well, keep in mind, Steve Bannon was fired from the White House. President was classy and didn't say anything negative about him. Now Steve Bannon is. So now the president is firing back. He said Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. Steve was a staffer who worked for me after I had already won the nomination by defeating 17 candidates. Steve doesn't represent my base. He's only in it for himself.
You know, the Mercers, who are big financiers of President Trump and a big backer of Steve Bannon, have made their choice. The Mercers have cut off Steve Bannon. They will not finance any of his efforts or support any of the Steve Bannon candidates like Roy Moore. And the question is, what does Steve Bannon get out of disparaging the president in a way in which all his critics do? What does he, I just kept asking myself this last night, what does he get out of this?
Well, we know what the author gets out of it. A lot of books are going to be
a bestseller.
Yeah, it will be.
It is right now. It's #1 on Amazon. Doesn't come out till next week. Steve Bannon, however, after apparently he was served the papers that said you can't talk about the White House or the campaign because you signed documents to that effect, he had kind things to say about the president last night on his radio show across the street from us.
The president of the United States is a great man. You know, I support him day in and day out, whether going through the country, giving the Trump miracle speech or on the show or on the website. So I don't think you have to worry about that. But I appreciate the kind words.
The kind words, a great man. Michael Caputo was actually on the campaign. He was a senior advisor. He says this book is trash.
I stand with the president. This book by Michael Wolff is just trash. The comments about, in particular, about Don Jr. and that meeting in Trump Tower in June of 2016, they were, you know, I was really disturbed by those comments. I think that causes grief for the president and this presidency in the context of the ongoing Russia investigations. And I don't blame the president one bit for going off like he did.
Don Jr., he does say in the book, says when the president won the election, he looked white as a ghost. And Melania, according to the book, cried afterwards. And he's talking about, and that is Michael Caputo. He's talking about the meeting that happened in Trump Tower before Steve Bannon was even on board, that took place between a Russian that said that they had some interesting information on Hillary Clinton.
So media who doesn't like him, they're running with this. Of course, this is their headline on every single network this morning. They're loving this. But when you look at it, it's just a salacious book. It's so tabloid. It's a book about what this guy who was fired was saying about what was happening inside the White House. Do you really care? Write us and let us know. If you care about that, or if you care about what the economy looks like, all these jobs, people are getting bonuses.
You're not hearing so much about those stories.
Not on those Left-leaning media
That's
outlets.
right.
Last thing I'd like to say, one thing I just want to say, the one way he was characterized, I could absolutely tell you is wrong. The president doesn't like to read briefing books. He can't get through. When they talk about the Constitution, he didn't get through it. When he sits down with world leaders, he doesn't stay there. He gets bored. I've heard just the exact opposite. One-on-one, he could go on forever. He likes the briefing pages to understand before he goes in. In fact, when he was just a prospective candidate, he used to walk around in an old-fashioned way with folders like this. And I one time asked him, I go, what's in there? He goes, just news stories from around the country and different policy ideas. So I thought to myself, wow, I thought on his device he would carry it. He loves paging through different stories and different ideas and different columns. He didn't characterize him as somebody who doesn't read anything.
Part of the book says that he didn't even know who, the president didn't know who John Boehner was, which is ridiculous because John Boehner was the Speaker of the House. The president tweeted about him, talked about him all the time, played golf with him. So some are wondering whether or not parts of it are simply wrong. And Ainsley, to your earlier point about the mainstream media, how they were whipped up. If you were watching yesterday, the press briefing at about 3:30 with Sarah Sanders, I mean, people were talking about, is the president of the United States mentally unhealthy? And things like that. It was something to see. So we're going to show it to you.
Should Americans be concerned about the president's mental fitness, that he appears to be speaking so lightly about threats regarding the nuclear button?
He is not merely being cavalier with a threat about nuclear war. He's being cavalier in a way that makes him seem demented and deranged.
None of this normal, none of this acceptable, none of this, frankly, stable behavior.
Trump needs to be medicated and hospitalized at this point, or he is going to just kill all of us. And, you know, my feeling is that probably they're getting closer to him in the Mueller investigation. And that's what this is about, a lot of it.
And so many of the comments at the top of that were regarding North Korea. You know, my button's bigger than your button. And then the Michael Wolff book came out, and it hit the fan.
The media doesn't get him. The media doesn't get him. They're in New York. They're in L.A. I'm from South Carolina. I understand. I get New York. I understand that. Lots of Democrats in this area. They don't understand this president. But I'm from South Carolina, and I get those people. And the people in the South, in the Midwest where you're from, they love this president, and they get him because he gets them. And I remember growing up in the South, my dad always said, don't ever throw the first punch. He used to tell my brother this. But when someone punches you, you win. You punch back. And that's what he's doing to this dictator in North Korea. So the Southerners, Midwesterners, that's how they were raised. That they understand this president. They get him. You might not like it if you're in the North, or you might not like, there are a few in the South that don't like it. But that's his mentality. And he understands this country, and so many people in the country feel the same way he does.
Right. The thing that, and that's a good point, the thing that people get worried about is he does have the power to destroy half the planet, and they wonder if the tweet is leading us there. What I think people should understand a year in, it's not. It's part of a whole policy decision. Behind him, you got generals and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he's getting advice from all around, and he is at the tip of the spear, where normally you have other people out there doing that. He's actually doing it. This is ultimately he's going to be judged on this. What's going to happen with North Korea? Are they going to give up those weapons? What's going to happen with Iran? Are they going to overthrow their dictator? What's going to happen with Pakistan? Are they going to get the message? Look, the Palestinian Authority, are they going to get the peace?
You got to hear this, though. Last night, Mike Huckabee, he was on with Sean Hannity. Listen to what he said.
You've said that the media are like drug addicts, and I think that's being very unkind to the drug addicts, because I've known a lot of drug addicts, Sean, and a lot of them actually go into rehab and they get better. The press never gets better. They keep getting worse. They become more obsessed with the destruction of Donald Trump than they are with the building up of America. This is a president who's had a remarkable year. Oh, yeah, he says some things in tweets that drives everybody off the ranch. But the truth is, our economy's better, our security's better. We're trusted by nations that hated us before and didn't trust us. The Middle East is rapidly changing in a positive way. He's had the guts to stand up for the Iranian people against their autocratic, totalitarian, brutal, terroristic government. And they can't see any of that. Drug addicts sometimes have good days. I just don't know that the media is capable of having a good day.
Well, there's certainly a lot of talk about that this morning on the whole, you go through the channels right now, that's what everybody's talking about right now, and it's in the papers, so there you go.
Let us know what you think. I love to read your emails, so please send them all to us. We all love to read them.
When he says negative things about you and doesn't give you interviews, I think a lot of media people, journalists, are reacting emotionally instead of staying to their job. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, Dr. Sebastian Gorka worked inside the White House for a long time. He joins us live next. He knows Bannon, and he certainly knows the president.
And you've never seen a police chase end like this with, what? Wait, that's a kiss?
Aww.
What?
Wait. She doesn't look like she wants to be kissing
That truck
him.
was $19.95 an hour.
Yeah.
A cease and desist letter this morning. President Trump's legal team warning former chief White House strategist Steve Bannon to cease and desist after he blasted, among other people, Don Jr.'s meeting with the Russians as treasonous and unpatriotic in a bombshell book that comes out next week.
Yeah, the president's firing back, saying Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. Now that he is on his own, Steve is learning that winning isn't as easy as I make it look. Steve had very little to do with our historic victory.
Well, Fox News contributor and former deputy assistant to the president, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, is in a tough spot. Friendly with Steve Bannon and extremely loyal to the president, and I would say close to the president's family. Dr. Gorka, do you have to pick a side in this?
Happy New Year, guys. No, I don't. I'm on the side of the American Republic and on the side of truth. You need to know that this guy who wrote this book, and these are accusations not from Steve, but in a book by Michael Wolff, he's a sleazebag. I was asked to talk to him in the White House when he floated around the West Wing, and I refused to talk to this guy. Also, the newspaper that published this story, The Guardian, is the most left-wing gutter press rag in the UK you can imagine. So, no, I remain loyal to the president. Steve has to say whether or not he said these things.
He hasn't walked anything back, Dr. Gorka. He had plenty of opportunities. He said nice things on his radio show, but all he had to do was tweet out what you just said, and he didn't. So it makes me think that he's accurate because he's been spotted in the office. Michael Wolff has in the office quite often, and you probably saw him there with Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
Look, I saw Wolff, but as I said, I refused to talk to him. But look at the article. There's a long excerpt in the New York Magazine published yesterday from the book. It is full of inaccuracies and lies. You've pointed them out already. Steve, you mentioned the fact that the president was supposedly unaware of who John Boehner is. It's bogus. Right. The president is a vacuum cleaner of information. The idea that he doesn't read stuff, again, in his office when I first met him in New York, he had stacks of pieces of paper that weren't there for decoration. It's because he was reading them. This guy is a hack.
How do you think the American people will respond to this? You think they'll agree with Sarah Huckabee Sanders? She said it was trashy, tabloid fiction, false. Do you think they'll buy into this book or believe this book? And what do they really care about?
No, I think, you know, the people who will buy into this book are the people who hate the president already. And that doesn't matter because the president had a crushing year. Think about what happened, whether it's the economy, whether it's ISIS, whether it's the southern border, revitalizing NATO, the Asia trip. It's just, you know, the successes are building upon each other in a way that the media cannot deny. So what do? Generate falsehood. So I think, you know, the people who voted for this president will keep on believing in the Make America Great Again agenda, and that's great because 2018 is going to be a fabulous year.
All right. Dr. Gorka, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dr. Gorka. If you want to get an unemployment check, should you have to get drug tested first? We're going to debate it next. The Trump administration is looking to bring back and expand on a rule that Congress repealed last year, which requires drug testing before you get your unemployment benefits. This as unemployment benefits claims are at a 17-year record low, decreasing by the thousands during Trump's first year in office. So what does this mean for you, the taxpayer, and those that are looking to hire new employees? Here to debate this is founder and president of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education, Star Parker, and former Democratic Missouri State Representative and founder of Pine Street Strategies, Don Calloway. Thank you both for being with us.
Good morning, Ainsley. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Don. Star, I'll start with you. What do you think about this? Do you agree with the president? Should we drug test people before we give them unemployment benefits?
I think it's up to the American people if they think that the people that receive their tax benefits should be drug tested. What the Trump administration and the Republican-led Congress is attempting to do is allow for more flexibility in the states for businesses and for the state themselves to decide whether they can get people back to employment. You know, let's face it, in particular, as states are starting to legalize marijuana, we have a new dilemma. Marijuana brings out that lazy in us, and one of the obligations of the person receiving the unemployment benefit is that they're going to be actively looking for work. So yes, I think that it might be healthy for the Labor Department to decide in their new assessments of rules that drug testing will be permissible.
Okay, Don, what do you think about it?
You know, I disagree with my friend Starr here. For those of us who participate in the state and local government space, this is a concept that's not new. We see conservative legislatures or administrations consistently moving to place either roadblocks in front of public assistance or take away benefits on the back end. And ultimately, it's something that probably has some constitutional hurdles. In 1972, Goldberg versus Kelly decided that unemployment and public assistance benefits are property within the meaning of the Due Process Clause and have to be treated as such. So it's possibly got some constitutional hurdles, but secondly, we continue to vilify and villainize poor people and set them aside as a class in a way that we don't do anyone else in this country who receives public benefits. We just passed a massive tax cut that inures primarily to the benefit of high-end corporations and high net worth individuals. We don't see them being submitted to drug testing or any type of proposal of that nature. So frankly, it probably has some constitutional hurdles, but it's definitely unchristian-like and definitely just probably morally bankrupt.
But Don, you're okay? I mean, you're waking up at 7:26 on the East Coast. You're waking up this morning, you're getting taxes taken out every time you see a paycheck. You're okay with those tax dollars going to people who are using that money instead of putting food on their families' tables? You're okay with them using it to buy drugs if they do that?
Listen, first of all, that's an assumption that poor people are doing that. It's frankly just not.
Well, that's
the
why
norm.
you have the
These
testing.
are not poor
That's
people
why
we're talking about. Wait a minute, let's leave the poor out of this. Unemployment benefits are for people that have been employed and now they're not.
If I could finish, but secondly, you know, Ainsley, I'm okay with it if we treat everyone else who receives government benefits in the same way. We're not drug testing CEOs for the massive tax cuts we just gave to corporations. We're not drug testing high net worth individuals for the massive tax breaks that we all just received and we hope to see under the next time we file our taxes. So, you know what? Let's stop setting aside unemployed and people who are down on their luck to receive disparate treatment. And yes, this is a hurdle, and this is primarily to the injury of poor people. So let's not act like this is not who this affects.
All right, Starr, I'll give you the last word.
Businesses drug test already. In fact, states drug test already. So what we're allowing for is more flexibility in the states and in businesses to decide that if someone is unemployed, that we need to get them employed again. And drugs stand in the way of that oftentimes.
Listen, let's treat everyone who receives public benefits the same, regardless of their employment status or income status.
I don't know that the unemployment check people want to be considered welfare dependents. This is a very different issue, and the Labor Department needs that flexibility to be able to change the rules.
Don, I will say, you talked about these CEOs of companies. I'm going to teach my daughter the only way you're becoming a CEO is if you stay away from drugs.
Hey, don't do drugs. I tell my boys every day.
All right. Thanks so much, Starr and Don. I appreciate it. The president firing back at Steve Bannon for trash-talking his family, threatening a lawsuit. Dana Lash, the host of The Dana Show, on that subject next. And this just in, how the president plans to plug the leaks coming out of his White House.
You trying to get through right now? Where are you going? Home. Home, he says. He's not going to stop for us, which I understand. We're in a blizzard. He's going home. I hope you make it, sir. Please stay safe. Woo! It is crazy out here. This man, the bravest, sure.
Those are snow tires on.
I don't think so. I know.
A man
it was a huffy
in Ocean City, Maryland, braving the elements to ride his bicycle on the way home.
Right. We don't know whose trees those are, but the area expected to get hit by 8 inches of snow. That is a live look at Ocean City, Maryland right now. Not a good time to walk on the boardwalk for a romantic stroll.
No, indeed. That same winter monster storm marching up the East Coast right now, impacting people all the way from the Mid-Atlantic through the Northeast.
Todd Pyro is live in Islip, New York, where snow is already coming down pretty hard there, Todd. Well, it was.
Doesn't look guys, like, good morning to you.
Falling right now?
You know, it's falling right now, definitely coming down pretty hard. And as the sun is up right now, you can see that road right there is really starting to get covered. The good news is we haven't seen a ton of cars. People do seem to be heeding the warning to avoid the roads on a day like this. Now, what makes this storm so unique, you've heard Janice say it all morning long, it's not the snow. It's the fact that it is so cold out here and going to get colder as the week progresses, but also the wind. It is extremely windy, very blizzard-like conditions here. Another thing that makes this storm unique is the path, where it came from. This storm started in Florida, and they typically don't get snow in Florida, as you might imagine, because people go there to get out of the snow. But Florida got snow. South Carolina and Georgia got snow. Boston is about to get snow later on today. They're expecting extremely heavy blizzard-like conditions there. If you can avoid going out, please do so. And also, airports are an absolute mess. One thing we want to touch back upon is the flag. I tried my best. I could not get the flag because there is a pulley system that is broken. I do not have a key to get to the flag, and also the top, I was going to unhook it, but the top hook is a little bit too high for me. So hopefully anybody watching this who has the key at this business here on Sunrise Highway, please get over here, because we do not want Old Glory on the ground. Please, please, please get over here soon.
Well, you gave it the old team try. Todd, thank you very much for trying to fix that.
Thank you, Todd. Let's hand it over to Jillian. She has some more headlines for us. Jillian?
That's right. Good Thursday morning, and we begin with a Fox News alert, guys. Plugging the leaks. The White House now banning employees from using personal phones inside the West Wing. Starting tomorrow, the Trump administration aides will only be allowed to conduct business on their government-issued devices. In a statement, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders writes, quote, "The security and integrity of the technology systems at the White House is a top priority for the Trump administration, and therefore, starting next week, the use of all personal devices for both guests and staff will no longer be allowed in the West Wing." The NFL's TV ratings taking a historic nosedive to close out 2017. Players kneeling during the national anthem could be to blame after months of fans boycotting and the president slamming league owners.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, "Get that son of a off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!"
The overall average NFL audience tanking 10% in 2017, according to new data from USA Today. That comes after the league already saw a decline of 8% the year before. Okay, so we're giving the phrase hot pursuit a whole new meaning, I tell you. A couple getting in one last kiss after leading police on a 2-hour chase. The woman is accused of stealing a U-Haul truck, then leading officers on a pursuit through Los Angeles, but a blown tire ended the whole thing. Police breaking up the passion by tasing the man and tackling the woman. Both were arrested and treated for drugs. One bar owner may need a serious drink after someone stole a $1.3 million bottle of vodka. Danish police looking for this man seen fleeing the bar with what some say is the world's most expensive bottle of vodka. The bottle is made from gold and silver with a diamond-embellished cap. The one-of-a-kind bottle was uninsured and the only item stolen from the bar. But guys, it just makes you wonder how good the vodka really is if the bottle's what's so expensive.
Right. Is it Absolute or Tito's?
I heard Pop-Off.
Oh, is it Pop-Off? Right.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Jillian.
All right, meanwhile, let's bring in Dana Lash, a nationally syndicated radio host of The Dana Show. Hey, Dana, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you all.
Well, we've got lousy weather here in New York, and there's a storm going on all the television channels right now, and all the newspapers. Everybody's talking about this new book by Michael Wolff that comes out next week, and it quotes, among other people, Steve Bannon, who was always a trusted aide, everybody thought, to President Donald Trump, and now, you know, he's had some very unkind things to say about people in the White House, and a whole bunch of other people have as well. What's your perspective on how people should look at this book?
Well, first off, I'm not surprised at all that this has happened. In fact, I'm actually kind of shocked that it took this long for Steve Bannon to turn on President Trump and the administration, because that's who Steve Bannon is. He's an opportunist. This is an individual who likes to take credit for other people's success. He glommed onto Sarah Palin in the early days of her campaign. He glommed onto Andrew Breitbart. He glommed onto Ted Cruz, and he did the same thing with President Trump. He catches people as they're ascending or after they've already ascended and then tries to claim him credit for all of their accomplishments. So I've known the man for a long time. I have a history there. And so this is something that I, not just myself, but other former colleagues who were also there at the same time, who used to work for him, we've all seen this. But to this point, though, I know a lot of people are talking about whether or not they can trust Michael Wolff, and this guy seems to be untrustworthy and unethical. Steve Bannon trusted him enough to go and blab to him. Steve Bannon trusted him enough to let him in the inner sanctum and encourage other people within the Trump administration to talk to this guy. Steve Bannon claims to be a warrior against the media, but this is a guy who repeatedly has gone to the mainstream media to leak stories and to blab about the administration in an effort to undermine the president's foreign policy decisions. Now think about this. A guy who's supposed to be so strategic and so calculating actually robbed the president here as we go into 2018 of being able to start 2018 by discussing his huge victory with tax reform and how this is going to have to be the message that Republicans need to cling to for victories in the midterm elections coming up just several months, in the future here. And Steve Bannon robbed the president of this talking point by once again making it all about him. He ran to the American Prospect, let's not forget that, another progressive publication wherein he blabbed to a progressive reporter in an effort to undermine the president's foreign policy on North Korea. So I don't think that he can claim to be a warrior against the media when he uses it for his purposes continually to try to undermine the administration. Steve Bannon is all about Steve Bannon and will always only ever be about Steve Bannon.
Well, the one thing I would not know is that if he does have a part of the base, will he take that with him since he's now drawn sides between him and the president? And can the president afford to lose a part of that base to Steve Bannon?
I don't think so. The president didn't need Steve Bannon to win, and the president doesn't need Steve Bannon to be successful. Steve Bannon's contribution to this is taking over a website that was created by a better guy and running it into the ground and making